Welcome back to the Pink Paradox. I'm the host of your podcast. My name is Maitreya Edwards. I'm currently sitting in the back of my car, my station wagon in Byron Bay. I drove from Swan Hill to Canberra to interview Lama Choedak, which took 10 hours, and then another 12 the next day to get to Byron. But that doesn't matter. That's a story for another day. I'm very excited to introduce you to Lama Choedak Rinpoche. This is probably the most insightful 90 minutes that you're going to get out of me. I recommend you listen to this first and then you share to a friend. And with that, I hope you enjoy.
Keep listening to Pink Paradox so you don't stay too red.
Welcome back to the Pink Paradox. My name is Maitreya Edwards, and I'm very excited for my guest today. I'd like to introduce you to Lama Choedak Rinpoche.
Thank you, Maitreya, for having me to your talk show.
Yeah, I'll call it a talk show. And really, that's doing me quite a service calling it a talk show. I normally joke that this podcast is quite a selfish endeavor in that I do it for me to learn, and then if other people would like to listen, that is cool too. But this episode particularly, I'm very excited because I feel like a lot of people can benefit from your words and your wisdom and your teaching. I wanted to ask firstly a little bit about your name. So Lama, particularly Lama and Rinpoche, if you could explain what those terms mean.
Yes, if you think of Lama, you think of two things, don't you? One is a four-legged animal, another is a Lama from Tibet, So I fortunately fits with the second category. I don't mind having the four legs, but I only got two. So the Lama is a very important Tibetan title given to a qualified Buddhist trained teacher. He or the person can be a monk or as a householder. In this case, I have been a monk for 12 years, but now I've been living over 50 years as a layman. So I'm Lama by virtue of being educated as a Tibetan Buddhist monk and practice and trained. And then Rinpoche is another Tibetan word called precious one. So the precious one is, I was given this title in 2001 when my teacher, His Eminent Chogi Trichin, visited Australia. That's probably when you were 1 year old.
Yes, correct.
And he gave me the title in recognition of my little work here in Australia, and so that's a very honorary title. It could be given to someone who's very senior member of a monastery. Usually people think Rinpoches are necessarily a reincarnated one. I'm sure we are all reincarnated, so therefore everybody is entitled to. But someone who's recognized from early age as a reincarnated, they usually call them also Tulku or Rinpoche. But in my case, it's neither the case. It's given only after many, many years of my work in Australia, and in recognition of that title Rinpoche is given. But not anybody can give that title lightly unless it is your own teacher who himself is a very high lineage master. In this case, it is my teacher, His Eminent Chogi Trichin Rinpoche. He's even teacher to the Dalai Lama and to his own Sakya Kongman Trichin and many others. So for me to receive that title from him is almost, most people can't even believe it. And so that's an honor I was given quite out of the blue.
Yes, and for what it's worth, I do think it's very well deserved, particularly for your work here in Australia. You were born in 1959 in Tibet, but your family at that time was fleeing the Chinese Red Army. Can you talk to me a little bit about that journey and ending up in Nepal?
Yes, when Tibet was invaded by our friendly neighbor, without telling us what they're going to do, so we found it very difficult to remain in peace when our land is completely invaded by most powerful military force in the world, and we had no answer for it, so we escaped for life. And my family is a nomadic family with hundreds of yaks and sheep and goats and horses. So we traveled with the animal for 6 months, very exhaustively, until we had no choice but to enter into Nepalese border in Mustang, where all our animals died of heavy snowstorm. And so we lost all the animals, which means we became just nothing. We have nothing. And we couldn't bring them down anyways due to low altitude. And so then we became refugees in Nepal. And so we grew up in a Tibetan refugee settlement, which is largely financed and supported by Swiss Red Cross. So all of us grew up in a refugee settlement, which was really difficult. Firstly, the climate, the food, the culture, the language, and everything was, and the weather as well, very difficult. Many people died. Some due to shock, some exhaustion, many due to hunger. But we succeed to arrive in, but my younger sister and my grandfather they died as a result of that escape. So we had a really difficult time. And so that was I'm glad I was too young to remember all the details, so can't remember all, but I can imagine how hard it was.
Yes. Incredible. And I talk a lot on this podcast about adversity, and it's very, very difficult to compare that story to anything else, but you talk a lot about suffering and suffering and how it relates to joy at the same time. Can you insight me a little bit about suffering and the mind itself?
Yeah, well, suffering is generally speaking a very universal nature of existence. Once we are born, we are always craving and wanting something, but we are wanting something that is not really there in itself. So the very nature of our craving perpetuates the very suffering that we do not want. So we don't want suffering, but we are blindly rushing into it. Like the moth doesn't want to stay somewhere unpleasant and get attracted by this beautiful flame, and she just flies into the flame only to be incinerated. And most of us sentient human beings included do not know what they want is least they should have. So people are craving alcohol, craving power, status, this and that. In the end, that very craving perpetuates the suffering. So life is always, as long as the mind of the individual is under the sway of afflictions and not aware of the affliction on top of that, is often going after the very thing that perpetuates the very suffering, because the person has lost its mind to things. They don't know of their own mind's vulnerability to distinguish what is good and what is not. So when we have the understanding of mind, then even sufferings are temporary, Even sufferings are not truly independently there. Sufferings are caused by not knowing everything changes. So if we know if mind itself knows, it can change its own opinions or thought about something, even the suffering. When we escaped from Tibet, we were taught by the teachings that this suffering is difficult, but in comparison to other people in the world, other sentient beings, living beings in the world, this is comparatively nothing. So when our mind has the flexibility to think like that, then the suffering becomes cause of humility and cause of compassion to others who have double the suffering that when we have. So there is no really suffering as such. That is a problem when you can master your mind about it and then use the suffering and understanding of it to cause compassion to others who do not know that that's the case. Others are completely anguished about the suffering, but you could learn that this suffering is inevitable, but others are far more worse than my suffering. So my suffering is something what I shouldn't reject, but should make me to inform and reform myself to understand how much more severe suffering others go through. So then your suffering becomes a catalyst to know other suffering, which we thought didn't exist. Others are worse, many, many times worse than us. So suffering, when you understand the mind, suffering is cause of our compassion. And suffering is not an antithesis of compassion. Without suffering, we cannot develop compassion. Even compassion is highest virtue, but you cannot show compassion unless you see the suffering and people's ignorance of what it creates. And therefore you say, oh, he didn't even know what he was doing was causing the suffering. And when we know that, others, people's sufferings around us become cause of our growth, our own compassion, and then by that time our own sufferings so minuscule, even feel ashamed to be thinking about. So you can see how your mind can take leaps and not feel poor me mentality anymore, and then use the suffering as a cause of generating compassion to others, and then and relinquishing our own suffering that really isn't there at all. So when we have a mind in our hand, there is really no suffering that is not unsurmountable.
And it's an example for me, at least. Just today, I travelled from Swan Hill today. It was about probably a 10-hour journey. It ended up being a bit longer than I first anticipated. I realised about 7 hours into my trip that I left. I have this beautiful old film camera, and I like it a lot. I realised I left it back at the farm where I was today, and you're totally right. There was about 10 or 15 minutes where my mind was racing, and all I could think about was this little object, this little camera. And my father Simon Ratner, he tells me every day, every time I see him, that everything is impermanent. And it took me probably, I'm a novice, but it took me 10 or 15 minutes to realize, exactly like you said, you almost feel silly when you compare your problem to the scope of the universe and the scope of humanity. So I couldn't agree more with what you said. I wanted to ask a little bit about, and I apologize in advance because I will mispronounce this name just slightly, but you were talking about your mentor before, Choedak. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Talk to me about, so you were one of a few students with him. Talk to me about what he means to you, and perhaps one of the lessons that you deem important for our viewers to hear that he taught you.
Yes, His Eminence Choedak Rinpoche is my spiritual father and guide and mentor in my spiritual growth. So he is one of the most towering figures of Tibetan Buddhism. He has become teacher of all the teachers. A friend of mine wrote a big book on his life called Lama of Lamas, and that was titled his biography, because he is the Lama of all the lamas. and so for me, when I became his disciple, he wasn't quite the Lama of lamas. He was lamas of just a half a dozen boys.
Right.
And so particularly when he was building his first monastery in Lumbini, the birthplace of the Buddha, and it was such a neglected, desolate land, because Nepal, while has a strong Buddhist influence, has been lost and in the history, and the place was neglected. There was no Buddhism in the place where Buddha was born, but my teacher deliberately requested land grant from the government of Nepal, which he got, and then he built a monastery there. So I grew up with him for the first 4 or 5 years, studying with him while seeing the monastery being built, and we were involved doing many physical labor, as well as helping a lot of administration and translating for the local laborers. So mainly, we were able to build this amazing monastery in the middle of nowhere, where thousands of people will come. Those days we never know what we're building this for, but then later on, it became the place that housed thousands of monks, lamas, who come every year to do prayer for 10 days, and so it became the real seat of the Dharma. So soon, around mid-80s, then my teacher, his Saman Chogyam, became teacher of the Dalai Lama.
Teacher
of his Holiness Dalai Lama. And Dalai Lama sent his man to invite him to come to Dalai Lama and give him teachings. And so he gave Dalai Lama the most precious Lamde teachings for nearly 2 months privately. And then, of course, he has also been teacher to His Holiness Sakya Kongma Techen and many other heads of many other Tibetan Buddhist lineages. He usually is a very hidden yogi. He's a real practitioner, teacher. Most people in Kathmandu didn't even know he existed, because he's always in his room practicing. So he is most noble example of practitioners who spend much of his time always doing meditation, discipline, and developing wisdom. So if I did not have in my life, I would not be what I'm doing and all these things in Australia. Which is nothing special, but at least where there's nothing much, but there's some people who can represent Buddhism and give the teachings. He inspired, motivated, trained me, and then once when I come here, even I settled in Australia for nearly 10 years, I wasn't quite sure. But then I invited him in 1996 to Australia, and then he endorsed. He was so happy, saying, "Oh, now a father has a son, eventually." And then he was very delighted when he first visited our center, and then he did the launching of our Rongton Buddhist College, and then we started regular teaching and annual retreats, all through his blessings. So I know that his actual raising me up, as well as giving me teachings, and most importantly, he visiting Australia 3 times in person. One in 1996, second one 2001, last one in 2006. He visited, and he inaugurated and consecrated that temple in East Gippsland. Yeah. So through his activities, I was able to take back hundreds of Australians with me to Nepal and India, to introduce to him, to also have audience with Holiness Dalai Lama, go to various Buddhist sites. So all of what we call in Buddhism, it's his legacy, his activities is what I'm trying to represent in a very small way. So he means everything, not because Not because when he was alive, but even when he's not mortally with me, but his presence and his actual inspiration is still as alive as much as it was when I was with him in person. So he means everything.
Beautiful and very well put. I'm very interested, particularly in mentors. My first 2 episodes when I started this program was with my 2 mentors. One was Anthony James, who lives in WA, a friend of my father's. The second one was a man named Jimmy, and I met him when I was about 14 at our cricket club, and that episode's available. So if a viewer wants to look at that, that's fine. But I got to interview him for this podcast, and I had about 2 hours, and I was very nervous before, and that was the last time I ever saw him. He passed away shortly after. And talking of mentors and how you talk about yours, it reminds me of how I think about Jimmy, but the scope of your mentor is the amount of happiness it's brought the world, and that the fact that you're carrying on that legacy is quite awe-inspiring. You mentioned His Holiness the Dalai Lama. When he comes to Australia, do you normally help him around when he's in Australia?
When he first visited in the early 1990s, I was in one of the committees, at least here in Canberra, to help his visit. And then I was also invited by the organizing committees to sit on a panel when His Holiness gave the Kala Chakra empowerment in Sydney 1997. And so, because there were very few Tibetan teachers who can speak English. So there were many senior geshes, but none of them spoke English. So I was the only Tibetan amongst few Westerners, disciples, to take all the questions. So I was given the honor to, as a panelist, to answer all the questions in the thousands of people. So I've done that quite a few times during all of his visits. So yes, of course, everyone is involved as a volunteer. And I, of course, was always involved.
Is there anything about the Dalai Lama that surprised you, or that people... I'll just ask that question. Is there anything about the Dalai Lama that surprised you?
Yeah. One thing is, of course, the Tibetans view the Dalai Lama as like the second only to the Buddha. You know? He's not really second to the Buddha, he's the Buddha, because the first Buddha we never met. The second to the Buddha is one who is among us, who is our race, who speaks our language, and so on. But what really amazed me is how we Tibetans regard Dalai Lama is one thing, but what he regards himself with others when he rubs shoulders with other people. He sits with all these scientists and people who are neurologists or whateverologists they are. They didn't know not much except their field of study, you know. But Dalai Lama deliberately sits with them, shares the whole platform, and sit there, listen good most of the time, as he's got huge things to learn from them. But in reality, his being there is influencing the very spirit of every one of those panelists, and many of them don't even know how he's blessing them, how he's changing them. Through his humility, through his humanity, he actually does that as if he has got something to learn by listening to all these people, which he may not have in a cognitively, educational, there's nothing. But humanistically, by him showing that respect to others as equal brothers and as humans, which he always says, surprises me. How he, as a bodhisattva, skillfully sits with the others. Tibetans would not even dare to look at his face. rather than, even though people are very well versed, they would tremble, they would not dare to speak. But His Holiness does the opposite with people, because in people in the West, even young people are quite competent to get up and talk, and no problem, you know. His Holiness's ability to pretend, actually, as if he's got some things to learn from others. But actually that's how he helps other people, by giving his presence. We call His Holiness Dalai Lama Kundun. Kundun means your presence. His presence alone blesses. He sits there with people and he's already teaching them on many levels. But he pretend as he's learning something about neurologies or whatever the people talk about, various data and behavior study and all of those things. So in the end, he may or may not have said or taught a lot intellectually on the platform, but everybody go home with this unforgettable influence that he has on everyone else. This is what I have noticed. So therefore, I have, because it's for me to experience what a true living bodhisattva does and affects other people, is taught in the text, but we haven't seen many. So I've seen that many times, and that's why the respect and the great command of respect, and he deservingly has that, because that surprises me as a Tibetan. Usually none of the other Tibetan High Lamas would spend time as if he wanted to learn things from others, sit there hours, days, year after year. They never do that. They wouldn't do that. But His Holiness is always treat everybody as equal, and listen from them, talk to them, give them opportunity to talk. He actually is listening to them, ask them questions. You know, he's almost skillfully dispensing himself to the role of what others would not do.
Yes.
So that really surprises me, that I'm able to actually see a bodhisattva in action, you know. Because usually we see that there are bodhisattvas, you know, some amazing holy beings. But you don't have to be holy beings, you have to be good human beings. That's His Holiness. He doesn't pretend that he's got power to heal people or see people's future. He doesn't pretend any of that. But he actually does things that actually lives like an engraving on the rocks don't go away. But writing on the water looks pretty but disappear quickly.
Yes.
So his influence on others is very deep, indescribable one, because of his profound kindness and wisdom and compassion. So that's why Tibetans call him Yishinobu, meaning wish-fulfilling gem. He actually is, and it's not just for the Tibetan people. And there are quite a lot of people who have had the good exposure to him. And whether it's just seeing him briefly at a stadium or whatever, they can feel the presence. They can feel the warmth and radiance of like a sun is very bright everywhere, isn't it? Everybody feels this. It's like he's like a sun shining to everyone. So that surprises me, how much the world lacks any such formidable leader. You know, you might have a very famous president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, Obama. But how long is Obama as president? Only for 2 terms, and that's finished. After that, there is nobody. He still will be admired to some degree, I suppose. And a lot of the presidents go to jail afterwards, you know. But Dalai Lama, whole life, this is only not this Dalai Lama, all the previous Dalai Lamas, all these things have kept a kind of status and a respectability to inspire the world. So for the Tibetan person like me, for us it brings a lot of joy. We don't have any despair and sadness of losing country. Because what is country? We always have somewhere to put our feet on. You know, so this is Mother Nature is a sky is our roof and earth is our floor, and we never get kicked out from somewhere. We're not suspended in the midair. So we don't really have sand as a Luzon country as much, because everywhere we are welcomed. Everywhere we're welcome, because the great leadership of Dalai Lama is enabling the world to see how much message of the Buddhist message of non-violence, compassion, tolerance is so important, and he's such a amazing spokesperson and a living embodiment of that. So this is of course I'm a great fortune for us to be able to bear witness to someone like him among us.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of what a responsibility that he has. You were talking about, the president's 2 terms is their responsibility. He has a lifetime, or just one, just one lifetime. Forgive me, I haven't pictured the names, but from my understanding, there is Moira, my neighbour, was telling me there's like a 2IC, a second in command, that they find a young child, and I believe this time the second in command, which you can perhaps help me with the names, was taken by the Chinese government. Is this correct?
Oh, you mean Panchen Lama? That's called Panchen Lama.
Yes.
Well, the Panchen Lama is Panchen Lama. Even the previous Panchen Lama never made it into exile. Previous Panchen Lama himself stayed behind, and he was perceived to be sort of more like a sympathizers of the invading forces at the very beginning. This is people's kind of perception.
Right.
But he wasn't. Of course, he had no choice, but he was kept under duress. And then he stayed in jail many years. Finally, he got released, and then Tibetan people discover how great patriotic Tibetan leader he was. And he wrote this 70,000 character petition to the government of People's Republic of China, what they must do to genuinely allow the Tibet and Tibetans to live peacefully in their land, and so on, Anyway, so he when he died mysteriously, then his reincarnation, recognition of him, his reincarnation is power, the tradition that usually is with the Tibetan leadership, lamas, and of course Dalai Lama. And that boy that is recognized by His Holiness Dalai Lama has been held captive and never known where he is. So this is now, we're talking about 30 over years ago, and that boy is never to be found where he is. And so that is, he's recognized by Dalai Lama, revered by every Tibetan, but within a year or 2 after that happened, he was held captive. Instead, a rival candidate was chosen, anointed, and appointed, and enthroned by the People's Republic of China. So this is, of course, kind of become a political pawn for the communist regime, and therefore it's very disconcerting how the position of the religious figures are used against the very people by the government who doesn't believe in religion at all, but yet use the position of religion as they having the right to recognize such a status, and not giving the actual recognition of someone like Dalai Lama as a recognized candidate. So this is, of course, creating a lot of problems, not only about him, but also future of the recognition of the Dalai Lama again. So that is a kind of a dilemma we are facing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the attempt by that governing body to break a religion it's baffling, particularly a religion of peace and of care, and Mani Padme, may all beings be happy, and it's quite boggling. I don't really have any more thoughts on that particular issue. I'm not well educated enough, but I thank you for your time. I wanted to ask a little bit about karma and reincarnation. My father has taught me about complete and incomplete karma, and I'd like you to inform myself and the viewers a little bit more about karma, because everyone is familiar with the word, and perhaps some how that relates to reincarnation.
Yeah, karma is a Sanskrit word that actually means action. Every action has consequences, and the consequences has consequences. And most people don't like that, consequences of their past action. And then they reject that consequences, and then it creates another consequences. And so because we are all aware that even in this very lifespan, if you study 10 years a subject and you master in the subject, you have BA and a master's in it, and then you become professional in the job, and you have a job as a result of your education, and you can see the consequences, the action, educational consequences, career consequences. So we actually are a result of what we did in the past. We may not remember what we did in the past, but if you sow the seed of tomato a couple of months ago, and then you see them growing, you can see, oh, that's the result of my sowing the seed of tomato. But if you sow the seed of tomato, you can't expect to grow radish.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure.
But if you do sow the seed of radish, you'll be surprised if they become tomatoes. But they don't. But often people are doing that. They have sown the seed, but they forgot of what seed they sow. The result they get, they don't want to accept it. They reject as a karma because they forgot what they did as a sowing the seed. So we don't have a good really memory, particularly from past lives. And because we can't remember past lives, we can't accept reincarnation. But yet, yet that what we do last 10 years, we already are reaping some of the harvest, reaping the benefit of what we did 10 years ago, whether it's our career or finance or relationship, or in which you put a lot of good things. There's a lot of loving relationship, Those people who do not put in that, they have a lot of hate and ill will and resentment, and they continue that the consequences of the resentment and the pain and hurt and resentment continues months, years. Now, if this happens, reincarnation simply means consequences of past life to this life to next life, yesterday to today, last year to this year. So when people think of reincarnation, they think about some distant future they may not believe they will have. People have many reincarnations in this very life. In this very life, they were doing this, and then all of a sudden they gave up that, and then they start something totally again. Now he's starting again. It's a reincarnation, basically he's but we don't have different names. People change through life. We just keep the same name.
Yeah.
But when we are reborn, we don't remember our past names. So they say, because we don't say, Mom, I got my own name I brought from past lives.
Yeah, sure.
So our parents they also have never met a child with their own name from past lives. So whatever name we are given. But actually that name is very random, they give to us. But we are born with some kind of blueprint of what we were like in the past. And so we are gifted in this life to enjoy good that we did, either in form of health, or good parent, good life, good education, successful in life. All these are some kind of a kind of seed that you have banked in the past lives memory. And then this will come into fruition in this life. And so the reincarnation is not so much the correct word. In Tibetan means we are born not again. We're not born again. There's no againable body or mind, but we're born with incomplete karma from the past. So then we are left with to pick up where we left. Some people will be born with a very young genius, very gifted in music. They hardly have to learn it. They just become born musicians. Why? Because they have already learned the music and mastered very well in the past life, Of course, they don't remember. They don't need to, because it's all in the blueprint. So when this life, when they pick up music, they become very good at it, because they have already residues of past lives, Now, we cannot see past life with our naked eyes. We cannot, we don't have any recording from past lives, but there are lots of people nowadays remembering past lives, and of course others don't believe them, but the person himself believes them. Some people recognize who's their past lives parents, past life mothers. In Buddhism, we are told everyone has been our past lives mother. Some people don't even recognize this present life's mother. They don't want to listen, recognize who she is. But those who have kept the good bond and friendship with their mother, and of course, when they're told about the kindness of this present life's mother, they're actually starting to remember how kind she has been. No matter how difficult the last few years or some things have happened, but the actual kindness that you have received in the past from our mother or someone, when you think about it, it has made you to treat and look at her very differently, no matter how much changes you have gone through. And so you are able to therefore pick up the learning to repay her kindness when she's old, frail, and not so independent, and maybe weak, and all the and she is starting to age. We must remember her kindness and repay her kindness. Like that's already reincarnation now. Your same body, same life, but in that very life, now you are the one who have to provide and care what you have received from them. So therefore we reciprocate the kindness that we have received. In going back to the law of, I call it law of consequences. So that people don't have to use the word karma, Because when people think of karma, they think it's fate, And they think it's your karma, you can't do nothing. It's not can't do nothing, it's karma. Can do everything is karma. Some things might be a bit too late to change that particular thing, but that itself will change and will not exist very long. So even karma is impermanent.
Yes.
And particularly if we are able to add some things that are necessary, subtract others that are not so necessary. So past incomplete karmas, we experience some of us experience incomplete karmas. What makes complete or incomplete karma are 4 factors. Those 4 factors are the object and intention, application, and completion. So every action. So if I wanted to throw a kind of rock, throw this rock and to hit the car, and so your precious car. I can see that. Yeah. So if I firstly object, I will have to hit your car. So that's it. The second is my intention. Why I want to hit the car. You know. So the intention, intention to hit the car. So I have intention to hit, but also intention to hit your car. Yeah. So that's object and intention. What is the intention to hit the car? Out of jealousy, out of anger. You know, nothing to do with the car, but I was so angry, I'll just throw that so that express my frustration. So people can commit actions. People can do actions like aggression, actions of aggression to inanimate object like a car, throwing a stone at it, and then throwing itself is called application. The intention followed by action. And the fourth one is completion. Completion is it breaks the windscreen. Yeah. So that is the violent act. The violent act, the person who has committed that, and then feeling, I was a good aimer, I didn't miss it, I just destroyed it and feel so good and still think it's a great achievement. People who do these kind of actions will, sooner or later, mostly that they say, within not very long time after, they'll experience some problems themselves. Have their things broken by other people, you know. But so some people have their things broken by others, but you didn't do any breaking this life to anybody, you know. But you will experience to be broken into your home or whatever like that. So one actually says, I must have done this to other people. So this enables the people to not to retaliate and react badly, but try to just see that as a payback of whatever actions one may have consummated in the past. So the law of karma is law of consequences. And whether we are able to verify everything, whether I did this to him, therefore I'm getting this from her to me, whether we can verify that or not is highly difficult. You know, even only the enlightened ones will know nitty-gritty details of everything. Why the thorns so sharp, why peas are so round. You know, physicists wouldn't know how to explain how did the thorn become so sharp in the middle of the plant. Some plants are growing beautiful flowers that's so soft to touch and to smell. Others are just always thorny and go near, it's so prickly. You know, what are the physical causes of them? You know, there is a physics into it. You know, everything has the causes. You know. So we know that even in the physical world, you know, why airplane fly, you know, and we have studied years to produce airplane, you know, and all the knowledge put together now we are these days flying in jumbo in style.
Yes.
So therefore these are created actions and culminating into very perfect creation of such mechanic and being able to fly such a big piece of aircraft carrying hundreds of people. When you see that, these are all accumulation of actions that has this result. Likewise, the person who, the karma has this, what we call experiential karma, the habitual karma, and environmental karma. So experiential karma is if I have stolen things in my past life, I will have many times will be robbed by other people. So that's experiential. What I did to others, I experienced. And also I habitually have this myself tendency to steal. Tendencies to steal. Nothing like that. Instead of thinking it's bad, I just do it, take it whenever I can. You know, the habitual karma.
Yeah, nature.
So there's a habitual, one is habitual, one is experiential, another is also environmental. Another is also you're surrounded by friends who do that all the time, unhesitatingly. So you're attracted to these people who do that. Whereas others who have not done that before, they will not experience theft and robbery and being swindled by others. It's amazing. But we can. Most people say, how do we know I did that? You know, it's him, he's robbed me. He's the cause of my theft, lost my... No, it's not that what I did in the past. Most people haven't got a reserve of merit to remember what they did in the past. In Buddhism, we think, say, if somebody did break into your house and took some valuable from you, and they took the great effort to come in the middle of the night, break the room door, and whatever they did, and instead of thinking, where is he, how I'm going to punish him, the Buddhist person said, oh, poor thing, they have to take such an effort to come, such a wee hours of the morning, and do that, and take just this. Oh, may they be happy, be free. I must have done such things in the past. You know, may my little thing they took bring them more happiness than it has enabled me to have all these years. So when you do this, then you understand karma. You're not reacting to what you experience as a victim. Someone stole my house, and then they go and create more problem. People who don't know that their own actions got any consequences. They don't realize if somebody said or did something, they don't realize their bad mouthing has consequences.
Yes, definitely.
So most people who don't understand their bad mouthing has much consequences to themselves. So watch out your mouth. You think you got freedom of speech? Yes, you will have no freedom of facing its consequences.
Yes.
You will have to face the very consequence. There are lots of people who think they're brave, you know, to raise some issues, whistleblower or what they got. They think they got no consequences. Later on, they're alienated. You know, those people who make big accusation of something, or maybe like say rape or something, like in a parliament or somewhere, and then they bring up this case, and then they thought there were no consequences. Now they realize the consequence. Then their life has been destroyed. Who destroyed it? Many things, including your own reaction. But they don't think like that. They think it's someone else's action. Karma is interdependent. It's not independent creation of yourself. Therefore, a Buddhist person who understands karma will not react just because you experience theft. You try to apprehend and punish the thief. You say, oh, may he be happy to take whatever he took. I don't want to go and pursue him. May all my karmic debts of having myself stolen, and then not that we have done in this life, but it's possible, may it purify all the karma. May he or she, you know, find some kind of temporary happiness that I didn't get from having this. So when you do that, then you will complete the karma. Then you will become. Otherwise, you will keep getting robbed. So this is the incomplete, because once the moment you have accepted like that, maybe say someone close, near, dear to you swindles you, deceives you, or whatever. And you see that as whatever one may have done in the past. Maybe I've done this to my own sister or brother or mother or something. This life they are doing this, but these are not the same person did to me. But you know, they're just the messengers. The message is sent by my past. I'm the consignee and consignor.
Yeah, right,
They're just a messenger. If you think like that, then you complete karma, and you will not repeat other consequences, because you are actually taking responsibility to put an end to it. So sometimes, if you understand law of karma, in Buddhism we have a lot of acceptance. Accept. When you accept, then the problem is stopped. You complete. You put an end to this problem. Otherwise, it just perpetuates. Karma is just like endless chain by which you are fettered. But we don't want to be chained. We want to be released from the chain. So if you understand the karma, then you actually take responsibility to be your reaction rather than effect of what other people did to you. If I react this way, this too will have consequences to me and my future. And hence, they say, the fools complain about result. The wise choose the causes carefully. Because what they do is the cause of what it will become in the future. So therefore, one who understands the workings of the law of cause and effect, laws of cause and consequences, actually knows not only the others are cause of something that you experience, but your reaction will also have consequences to you. So be careful. So this empowers us to change the effect from escalating, and we have power to de-escalate them. And that's why you practice patience. That's you practice compassion. That's how you practice forgiveness. So that what other person did wrong is the cause of your ability to forgive them. This will enable you to practice patience, and this will enable you to practice compassion to them. This will enable you to endure small misery now to prevent big misery in the future. This is how you understand the understanding of the law of karma enables you to cope with present difficulties, and you have to tolerate with it. But for a big result in the future, tomorrow you will never regret, I practiced patience last night. And you will feel, that's patience is the virtue of all virtues. It's timeless currency.
Yeah, beautiful and powerful perspective. I think that's an answer I might have to replay a few times in the car, and reinforce and consolidate in my mind. And you're referring to in a singular being, the consequence of a singular being, but this is interwoven in every facet of the universe. I actually wanted to ask. I just thought of this then. Do Buddhists, do they believe there's life, there's other life in this universe?
Oh yes. The word universe is incorrect. It's a multiverse.
Yeah.
Uni, just one. It's miserable. Where does the universe start and finish? Show me. And where's the boundary in the north? Where's the boundary in the south? And then after that boundary, what's after our boundary of the north? There's nothing. Of course, there's something. Maybe we are the southernmost of our north. Our northern point is someone else's southern point. And our southernmost is someone's northern point. So where does the north start? Where does the north begin? So the word universe itself is a very, very sign that we don't realize. In Buddhism, we call countless galaxies of universe. And our planet Earth is only one of the 12 planets where human beings live. And we only know this one planet. We haven't seen the other 11 planets within this very universe. There are thousands of other universes which has different humans, different lives. And we live in this planet called Earth. Planet Earth in Buddhist cosmology is one of the 12 planets on which human beings live. And now, if our modern science regards this as a universe, that's the limitation. There are many, many other lives, many, many other multiverses. And we have been there before. We are not always reborn in this little earth. We have migrated from, we are called in Buddhism transmigrators. We're always migrating, not from one universe to the same universe again. No, we come from different planets, different realms. So Buddhism believes the existence of multiverses. And of course there's life. There may not be life in moon, but the moon is not the only place. Other than planet Earth, there are many, many planets that you and I couldn't go. Even our jumbo jet would not reach. They are that far. They're that different. So there is life, yes.
It's so difficult to comprehend. I like to think the Earth to the Sun is 8 light minutes. In distance, takes light 8 minutes to travel, and there are planets that are thousands of light years big within our space that our Earth sits, and only then I still can't comprehend it. But you realize how small we are, and at least that gives me a much greater scope of life before me and life when my life is over, and I get peace. I find peace from that, knowing my place, and it helps me particularly with other human beings. You know, when I was a bit younger, I'd stress a lot and get quite anxious about what other people thought, and trying to comprehend the size of the universe and how vast it is. It makes it a lot easier for me to just be content with my life, and just go out and try to learn as much as I can before I'm gone. Speaking of patience, I read that you, and it was sponsored by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, had a 3.5 year silent meditation. How does your mind, how was that for you? I suppose is an easier question, but more so the discipline of your mind to undertake something like that is something that's it's like a foreign language to me. I'd like to understand that a little bit more. Talk to me a little bit about that time in your life.
Yes, in Tibetan Buddhist monastic life, there are 2 strands of training: those who study philosophy and those who do the meditation. If possible, you study philosophy first and do the meditation later. But those who study philosophy become very, very dialectic and academic, those lines, and very few of them do the meditation. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate to be influenced to do the meditation very early on, and then not only that, but also given the opportunity to do the 3.5 years meditation, solitary retreat. Solitary, but we are doing solitarily, 5 of us all doing the same thing, but in our own room solitarily. So we are very much confined in that space for that period. We would not see anybody and do our practices. But I, right from the very early days when I was given the opportunity, feel so happy that I can do that. You know, it never felt that it's a hard thing. Can I do it? Will I cope with it? I never had those questions. I thought, what a great gift it is to be able to do that. So I had that. I'm sure all of my other colleagues were also. There was no intimidation or saying, will I cope with it? None of that. So we were really very much karmically well tuned into that. But being able to do the meditation was mainly, as you mentioned, His Holiness Dalai Lama, when he received the request of blessings and advice that is my teacher, Chokyi Tshirumpa, wanted to start that. He straight away said, I'll sponsor those monks. So you don't have to worry about whatever cost it entails. Please let my office take care of it. So His Holiness Dalai Lama has done that quite and all the Tibetans are there where they are because of his amazing leadership, generosity, amazing kindness. He's given that kind of moral support, right? And I'm among the 5 Sakya monks. He has also sponsored like that to other monks from different lineages. He is true spiritual father, you know. And so when I heard that we were sponsored, we felt really, that's unbelievable. Not only we are guided by such a teacher, but sponsored. So, but it was really hard, physically Emotionally, not really hard. Didn't have anyone big, but physically very hard. We all got sick, and one of our friends died in the retreat. Yes, and due to excessive heat and whatever. And then other had a nervous breakdown. He never recovered. And third one ran away. In the second year, he just said, "No, I can't do it." He just disappeared. These are senior monks. These are not unstable people. They're like the monk. And then only 2 of us succeeded to do that. We got very sick. Oh, you wouldn't believe that. The kind of sickness we had. Big boils on our hips and on the neck and the head, and like a guava or something like that. Very hard, very bad. In fact, for months and months, we were very sick, but we knew how to accept the karma. And to get sick in retreat is considered good. To die is even more auspicious. People usually say, "Oh, so you two only succeed the retreat." I say, "No, we too failed the retreat," because others who died successful, we too failed because we should have died in retreat. We should have perished in retreat, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because we didn't, but we did fast. Like we only ate 1 meal a day. Our body was very thin, and so on. But we never had much to miss food-wise or company-wise, thing to do-wise. We never had anything to miss, to lose. And so particularly when I was remembering where I was, this is birthplace of the Buddha. It's only a stone throw away where the Buddha was. I used to feel so fortunate that I can do such a retreat in any amount, let alone 3.5 years, under the guidance of Chogi Trichy Rinpoche, in Lumbini, sponsored by His Holiness Dalai Lama, without any adversities, hindrances, but only to my mind to use the teachings. So I was so protected by whoever to have that kind of mindset. My mind never failed. Body's problem is completely secondary when your mind is so strong. So I believe I have had such good set of mind. I believe in true Buddha nature. Everybody has that. And so because of that, no matter what physical and other adversities came, it didn't dented my morale. And so actually I didn't retreat. I entreated. I was fully treated. And so I didn't retreat, I advanced. And I'm completely sure that if had I not done that 3.5 year retreat, I would never be able to even imagine doing what I've been doing these years as a work, as a little service to the Dharma. So even in Tibetan Buddhism, even in Indian Buddhism, all the great masters are those who spend in retreat. The Buddha himself spent 6 years. Miller, 6 years on one spot, These days we go to that very spot called Bodh Gaya, and we go to pay homage to that very seat where he sat motionless 6 years. He sat by fasting, We at least ate 1 meal a day, He did the hardest way. He did the most self-mortification kind of practice. His body was turned into skeleton. Yet his meditation power was so strong that he withstood all of that. He got enlightened. We only follow small steps. We still ate 1 meal a day, every day. Our body was really weak and not so strong, and to the extent of contracting all kinds of illnesses. Some, as one of my friends died, but 2 of us didn't die. So, of course, one who dies at retreat, conventionally they think it's what a disaster. But actually it's success. So he was able to do what he wanted to do and die doing something useful and meaningful.
Yeah, you talk about legacy.
Yeah. Whereas, but people who create the karma to do the retreat, then the consequences they can also help other people and keep the teaching alive, and so on. So yeah, that retreat was very good, and I know that not many groups have been able to do such a retreat again. There were 2 other groups, but they had to be relocated because where we were doing the retreat was, while it's very sacred, holy land, but it's very hot, very difficult place. So 2 other groups were subsequently started, but hasn't now continued for many years. So therefore, people who do quality retreat are very few. So we strongly need to find selected candidate to do those retreat in the monasteries. So that's what the big effort is going on too. And right now there's one retreat facilities are being built to continue that program in Nepal.
Yeah, wow. I'm 22, right? And I don't have anything that can compare to that story. But one thing I have learnt, I've recently, I've been embarking on solo ventures by myself, and I go out and I want to learn more about the world, which is why it's such a privilege to talk to you today. One thing that I definitely have learnt through solo ventures is once I began to embrace adversity, and I anticipated and embraced adversity as it came, it made everything so much more enjoyable. And as I said, I can't put a droplet in that incredible story of your life. But yeah, that's it resonated with me a little bit, and it definitely inspires me to go and learn and to try and seek out and so much more. I have 3 more questions left for you, and again, I thank you for your time. I wanted to ask a little bit about, so there are different not levels, there are different, in terms of reincarnation, there is would you describe it as a heaven, or and just below is like a demigod. I don't have the right articulation right now, but my father's told me about the interesting, they're almost I say demigod, but they're almost kind of trying to go at war with a heaven. Can you incite me a little bit about that dynamic as we know it?
Yeah, according to Buddhist teachings, you can call it heaven, earth, and hell. You can call it, yeah. But according to Buddhism, the heaven is not heaven. Heaven is a temporary heaven. Is this permanent residence is not permanent residence, it's temporary residence.
Yeah.
It's only so the heavenly realms are, in Buddhism we call them God realms. But there are many God realms, many classes, like at least 28 different God realms. Yeah. 28. Yeah. These are 6 desire realm gods, and then 17 form realm gods. So 6 plus 17 is 23, isn't it? Correct. 23. Plus there are 4 formless realm gods. So that's 27, you know. So there are 27 realms who are all gods. But the difference between those gods, from desire realm gods, from formless realm gods to form realm gods, are huge. And what interreligious belief, the heaven they're talking about, the desire realm, the lowest God realms. Even the highest God realms, the formless and form realm gods, they are still within this is what we call samsara. They are all subject to change, and they will elapse their duration of, 20 million presidentship, or whatever their long lifespan, they still will come to end, and then they'll tumble down. Their karma is exhausted because they thought it was perfect, they thought it was eternal, but it's temporary. So Buddhist calls all the heavens are transient God realms. It's a celestial God realm, extremely pleasurable and perfect, but once they have exhausted, they will fall down to be born in earth or lower realms. So below those 27 heavens, in the West they call 7 heavens. We call in Buddhism 27 heavens. So 20 more, 20 more, And below those 27 heavens is called demigods.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure.
Now, demigods are, if you count the demigods with them, then there's 28.
Oh, it's only one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The demigods are demigods are actually God. In comparison to humans, their life is as good as God's.
Yeah.
But they really have an inferiority complex. So they look at the neighbors and they really think that they are much more pleasurable than they, and then they're jealous. So demigods never enjoy their wealth, their status. They're always envying the other, the God, and they're always fighting this illusory war. They think the God are fighting to them. God never fight them. God never has need to fight. They think God is always attacking them, stealing their wealth and all that sort of. So when we call in Buddhism, so when someone is acting like that, it's demigod mentality. Always think that somebody's doing jealous, jaundiced by jealousy.
Yeah, or even like in Russia at the moment.
Jaundiced by jealousy. You see you see things there which is not happening, but you just all make up it. You're all your figment of imagination. But the jaundiced demigod don't think so. So there are lots of beings who are born like that. They are jealous, they're envious, they're greedy, they're stingy, and they will be born there. Demigods. So that 28 heaven is made out of demigods with them. And then under that, then we have a human realm. The human realm is what we make earth. And the human realm's suffering is sickness, birth, aging, death. It's every day. You see this every day. Parting, losing what you have, not getting what you want. But then, as soon as you get what you want, it becomes a big problem. And this has happened again and again and again. And human beings think this is happening only to me. They never know this is universal. They don't realize all this water of the seas are salty. They think their water is the salty. And they always say, why me? Why me? And they don't understand what others are going through. So we live in this vicious cycle of existence. So those on the earth have got very gross sufferings, and we don't have much pleasure. Even we have pleasure, they're all transient. You have little pleasure sitting on the sun. You feel miserable when you're in the cold. You want to go in the sun. It's so nice in the sun. Soon that nice sun becomes too hot, and then it becomes pleasure, becomes displeasure. So everything is transient, and human beings and animals are going through this, transitory pleasure. There's no real pleasure at all. So they become attracted and addicted to pleasure, but it does not let them to know these two are impermanent and transient. When they lose something, they get devastated. And that's when Earth is. So the beings lower than the humans are animals and hungry ghosts and hell beings. So hungry ghosts are those. If there was a hungry ghost here, he wouldn't see any plant or tree. Everything turns desert. We offer him water, he couldn't see any water. it's just hallucinated by the craving. They want so much, they see nothing what they have. There are people in our world, they have everything, but they never appreciate. They never appreciate the things they have, qualification they have, money they have, friend they have, mother they have, friend they have, education. They never think what they have is sufficient.
My part of town feels very like that sometimes.
So that's a hungry ghost in the human body. Human being, but no contentment. They live luxuriously with everything, but never feel content. Always looking for something. Always looking for something. Always looking. Never contented with anything. So the hungry ghost is, many people die, become hungry ghosts. Many people also live like hungry ghosts. They look healthy, they look wealthy, but deep down they're so miserable, so tormented. So therefore, there are many such subclass living beings, hungry ghosts, animals. Look at the life of animals. Most of them are beautiful, but they see each other as food. They devour each other, It's no fault of anybody, but just they don't see each other as animals. They see each other as food. They don't eat each other out of anger. They eat because they're hungry. They have no protection. They are themselves in search of food for young ones. They themselves got eaten, become food of somebody else.
I had no knowledge of that consequence. You said,
because so the animal life is where the human beings treat animals. It shows how subordinated, how enslaved they are, but yet they have no power because of their ignorance, servitude, and helplessness. They don't have anything. They nose might be cut holes here, chains here, put in a cage. They cannot do nothing. No fault of their own. Not just for a couple of hours. Whole life they're stuck like that. Animals have no freedom. If they're not hunted and caged by human beings, they're devoured and eaten by each other. And that is not just, if they have a little peace and quietness, nobody attacking them, they have nowhere to stay. That's called home. Their own home is all wilderness. We feel cold, we quickly come home and put on the heater, blinds. They try to hide the tail between the two legs. This is not just 1 hour, 2 hours. It's a whole night, whole winter. And so the suffering of animals is just incredible. And because they have nice skin, they get killed. Because they got nice tusks, they get killed. They have no freedom, nobody mind. They even give license to shoot at them. They are completely, very difficult life. So that's why understanding the different lives, other than human beings, gods are demigods and hells are hungry ghosts. Hell is undescribable level. But Buddhistically speaking, they're not just hell in another location. They are hell on earth. Look at the fighting. Look at the the violence that our world, so-called first world, superpowers, they are super destructive countries. The superpowers are wrong words. Super destructive countries. They are the one who drops the amazing bombs, kills millions, and they think they're a superpower.
And the prevalence.
And then other one does the same thing. We basically bringing hell on earth. The hell in Ukraine right now, Syria right now, many places in the world, there's hell on earth. There's so much missiles raining down like rain. And nowhere to go. Oh, these beautiful cities and towns took years to build, destroyed within one strike. Senseless. So according to Buddhist teaching, we call 3 realms: desire realm, form realm, formless realm, or we can call extraterrestrial realm, terrestrial realm, and subterranean realm. So you can classify those different realms of existence. The universe is full of misery and vicious. So that's why one who knows these prevalence, our sufferings are negligible. And so we should tolerate that and then be kind to those who inflict those on us. They don't know that. Instead of being retaliated to them, as we can entitled to bring more harm, as we can become victorious or something. We don't have, all this army veterans.
So arbitrary, isn't it? Yeah.
So they wear great badges and come home very glorious. Deep down, so much injury. Totally destroyed life. Beautiful uniform.
Future. Yeah.
But inside, completely empty, hollow.
Contextualizing as you've just done makes it so much easier to look at the problems in my life, or I'm sure viewers in their life. And gee, it doesn't seem the scope. It's contextualized, and it makes it a lot easier to go and accept suffering. And yeah, wow, they're so insightful. I wanted to ask about enlightenment, because my understanding is there are levels of enlightenment. So have you attained a level of enlightenment, and can you talk to me a little bit about what those levels are?
The enlightenment is a very lofty goal. Enlightenment, in Buddhists, there are many different levels of enlightenment. I would not pretend or to claim to have achieve any enlightenment. It would not be. Firstly, it's not appropriate to think that I am enlightened, because that would be. It's like saying I realize egolessness.
Yeah, well, that itself is
because to say that is already.
Yeah, I'll say my question now. Yeah.
So enlightenment is very, very. But we could have some kind of small day-to-day enlightenment. How suffering is caused by selfishness. Just always remembering that, and not being selfish, and then even when somebody is selfish, you see, oh, I used to be like that. I'm still like that. That's quite enlightening way to think like that way, so that we don't stay dark and confused, unconscious. If you become conscious about unconscious, it's a little bit enlightening. So you now know how to be conscious of how we usually become so unconscious. So from a small level of enlightenment is already happening. So we need to do that regularly, cumulatively, and we call path of accumulation. So there are 5 levels in Buddhism, 5 paths: path of accumulation, path of preparation. When you're on that level, you're still in this mundane world. So, but when you have path of seeing, path of normal learning, a path of meditation, those 3 are fully enlightened ones. The enlightened ones themselves have 10 stages. But below those who are enlightened, there are many who have lots of realizations, insights, and they have power not to lose temper. They're still angry, they're still frustrated, but they have this ability to control the nerves, not to retaliate, and instead feel compassion to those who do wrong to us. So those are among us. So those are not regarded enlightened ones, but they are part of accumulating causes to become one. So there are lots of practitioners. His Holiness Dalai Lama says he's only on path of preparation, So he's on a path of accumulation, of course, but he's path of preparation. He doesn't claim that he's enlightened.
I didn't know. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he doesn't claim to be enlightened. he still says he wishes that he will realize path of preparation, which is relatively high, but still not regarded as enlightened. You know? So there are many levels of enlightenment, but within the different levels of enlightenment, there are subclasses of enlightenment. You know.
Sure.
So that's why when somebody is enlightened, and they probably will not need to eat and drink and so on. You know, they don't rely on mortal existence. You know, but most people are once in their aggregate physical body, they still feel the pinch, they still the cold, they still do that, and so that means they are still human. So there are lots of mind who are enlightened, but they deliberately have disguised themselves to come in human form to help others. So beings like Dalai Lama would be in that category. They deliberately chose to come in ordinary human form, and they always there to teach others, but never act as they're enlightened. You know. But they will. It's very enlightening activity to act as unenlightened, but actually very enlightened.
Paradox, yeah. Well, this is called the pink paradox.
That's right. That's right. Well, yeah, already pink is a paradox already.
Yeah.
Pink, you know, pink is a paradox of white and red. You know.
Yeah. So it is that. Yeah. Oh, wow.
I have one final question for you. I ask this to every guest as a good way of finishing the interview. I'm very interested to hear your answer. It is if your life was, say, a movie, hypothetically, and you had a soundtrack to that movie, what would be the first song in the soundtrack to this life for you?
Oh, don't take it seriously. Because there's nothing to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lama, Choedak, Rinpoche, thank you very much for answering my questions and giving me your time, and thank you.
Thank you. You're most welcome. Keep listening to Pink Paradox so you don't stay too red.
Very good.